start the recording now. So here we are. So whenever you want to take over, if you're just chatting with us or screen sharing, anything works. So.
Yeah, sounds great. Let me share my screen.
I'm not sure if I was actually recording during that introduction part. Akriti, do you think I should reintroduce Jenny or?
Either way, whatever you'd like.
Okay. I may actually reintroduce because I was not recording, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, sounds good.
With us, we have Jenny Kim. We are super excited to chat with her. She works in product management at WeWork in New York City, and she has experience with other startups and just a lot of experience working as a woman in technology. So Jenny, we are super happy to have you with us, and whenever you're ready to get started, just take it off.
Yeah, thanks. I'm really excited to be here. I'm gonna talk a little bit about what product management is and kind of how I got into technology. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
So I'm Jenny. Like Ryan said, I'm a product manager. I grew up in New York and attended the University of Michigan. Outside of work, I love to hike, play soccer, yoga, traveling when it was acceptable, and I love to cook. But first, I'd love to just kind of get to know like who's on this call. Does anyone want to introduce themselves?
Yeah, that would be lovely if we had our girls introduce themselves. So whoever wants to start, maybe Prisha? If not, Akriti, you could always kick it off.
Yeah, sure. I can start us off. Hey, Jenny. My name is Akriti. I'm actually a founder of Girls Code Lincoln. So we're a tech group with 4th to 9th graders, and this is kind of a weird time for us. So usually our girls are in person and they're learning to code. I think it would be really cool if our girls could talk about what they've been learning too and tell you a little bit about that. Avery, do you want to start us off? You can just unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm Avery, and I have been doing Girls Code for around like 1.5 semesters. So yeah.
What's something that you've been learning, Avery?
We worked a lot with HTML, and I'm trying to think what we left off doing before. Yeah, we were building websites, and then we kind of went on to do some stuff in Visual Studio, which was really neat.
Very cool.
Yeah, I think that's all I can think of at the moment.
Theta, do you want to share next? Maybe not. Prisha?
My name's Prisha, and I've been at Girls Code Lincoln for the same amount of time, and that's it.
Prisha, what grade are you in? What have you been doing over the pandemic?
I'm in 7th grade, and I've been at home.
Thanks, Prisha.
And it looks like we have Aspen who hopped on the call. So Aspen, would you like to introduce yourself? What grade you're in and something that you've been learning during the pandemic?
I'm in 5th grade. I don't know what I've been learning.
How long have you been with Girls Code Lincoln?
Hold on. How long
Oh,
Since last spring.
nice. That's
Very
lovely.
exciting.
Thanks for hopping on this week. And Theta, if you would like to share, you're always welcome to. And it looks like we also have Ryan Wolf, who just hopped on. Ryan also works with Girls Code Lincoln. So Ryan, if you'd like to just introduce yourself, that would be lovely.
Oh, okay. Hello. Let me turn my camera on 1 sec. I was not prepared. Hi, my name's Ryan, and I'm the director of volunteers for Girls Code. So I've mostly just been doing a lot of work getting volunteers ready to help out with clubs, but we're not doing much of that this semester. So I'm just excited to be here and see what's going on as far as the speaker series.
Sweet.
But I'll probably have to hop off in a little while. Just was going to stop by for a bit.
Wonderful. Thanks, Ryan. All right, I think that might be everybody.
All right, excited to meet you all. So we're going to talk a little bit about product management. So has anyone heard of or used Instagram before?
I have.
Oh, yeah.
So would love to hear, like, what are some things that you can do on Instagram?
Theta sent in the chat that she has used Instagram, so I'll just read out any of Theta's chats in case you can't see them.
Yeah, so what are some things that you like about Instagram, or what are some things that you've used before?
Ooh, that's a good point. Avery said that it's visual oriented.
Yeah, definitely visually oriented.
I like that it's social, that you can connect with friends and kind of keep in touch.
Yeah, they have a big following feature where you can follow someone and you can follow someone back. So some of the features, so each of these things are called features. So you can upload photos, you can post stories, you can follow other people. And each one of these things have been built by a team. And in order to build a new feature, we consider questions like, what should we build? What should it look like? And how should we build it? So in kind of a product or technology organization, we think of the product manager as the person who kind of decides what we should build. A designer is someone who decides like what it should look like. And the engineer decides how we're actually going to build it. So for product managers, Instagram just came out with Reels. They have stories. They're now looking into how you can shop on Instagram. And so they're kind of deciding what are the different features that we should be building for Instagram. Designers think about what should it look like? So should it have a button or should it have a link, or how do you get there? What colors is it maybe going to see? It's, like we said, it's very visually oriented. And that is something that designers spend a lot of time on doing research and making sure that it looks and feels similar all throughout the product. And then engineers, so they decide what language. We mentioned HTML. There's languages like Python and Ruby on Rails and React, and each one of those languages have different pros and cons. And if you think about coding, there's a lot of different ways in order to build an application. So they think about what's the structure and how do we make it stable. So we could think about, if we thought about what Instagram would build next, we could assume that, if they have features that are similar to TikTok, maybe they will partner with them, or maybe they will start allowing you to food shop, or maybe, I don't know, there's a bunch of other kind of crazy ideas that you can think of, or they can kind of focus on the social aspects and following features. Does anyone have any questions so far?
No questions, but I do really like how you broke down the different aspects of technology and product management versus designer. I thought that was really nice.
Yeah, thanks. So next, we'll talk about what product is at WeWork. So what is WeWork? WeWork is a co-working space that provides office spaces for different companies. When companies have to think about workspaces for their employees, there's a lot of factors that go into making that decision. So, where is the location and what is it going to look like? How much does it cost? And WeWork provides all of those office spaces that are already built, where companies then don't really have to think about any of the visual factors or a lot of the administrative aspects of how they find space is taken care of. And so the companies who have memberships with us are called members. And so WeWork has over 500 locations across the world. They've been growing quite a lot over the last few years. And every building has a team of community managers. And these are the people who greet members and make sure that they have a positive experience. So if you think about going to a doctor's office or going to a restaurant, it's similar to the person who will greet you to make sure that you're in the right place, you know where you're going, if you have any questions that they can answer for you, and things like that. So members at WeWork, they might have questions like, how do I book a conference room, or where is my office? Has my guest arrived yet? And what events are planned for next week? So at WeWork, we build technology for these community managers to have all of the information that they need in one place. It would be really inconvenient to go to one place if you wanted to look at events, and then to go to a different place if you wanted to see all of the guests that were coming in today. So we've built tools in order for community managers in order to know exactly what they need to know and have really easy ways to complete those tasks. So something that I've worked on recently is a feature called Member Notes. So we focus a lot around hospitality and how we can provide good member experiences. So we provided a feature for community teams to write notes about who their members are in an easy way, so that they are able to share what they've learned with their entire team. We heard that it was if different people are sitting at the front desk, different people are learning different things, and there's so many people that come and go that it's hard to keep track of if someone asks for their office to be changed, or if someone came up to them saying their key card doesn't work. So this is a really easy way for them to keep track of who they've talked to, if there's anything that they need to follow up with, and their whole team can come to this later to see what they've actually learned about their members. And so we want to make sure that if someone comes to the community team and asks them for something, that we will at least follow up with them and try as best we can to fulfill their request. So just to kind of sum it up, a product manager is responsible for deciding what a team should build and why. they work with engineers and designers on what it should look like and how they should actually build it. And finally, it's really great for people who like building things and people who work on a team. As a product manager, you are constantly collaborating with other people, whether it's people on the business side or engineers who are actually building the products. And you are working with so many different people that it's that if you like building, if you like working on a team, this could definitely interest you. So with that being said, does anyone have any questions?
I agree, Theta. That does sound really cool. You kind of touched on it a bit on this last slide, but a lot of our girls are just learning, or so far they're just learning pure development work in Girls Code Lincoln. And so what inspired you to take the more product management oriented path as opposed to just becoming a developer? And what kind of advice would you have, I guess, for the girls who are curious about each of the different paths?
Yeah, that's a good question. I actually also took some engineering classes in college, and I really liked learning how things worked. And I think as I started working, I really liked being in the business side of things. So product managers will be more in the conversation of what should we build and how will it help the business? And if you think about like TikTok versus Instagram, like what makes somebody want to use one over the other? So that's kind of the problem space where product managers will think, whereas engineers will be more focused on, okay, if we are going to build Instagram Reels or we're going to build this product, how do we build it in the best way possible? So it's kind of, if you think about Legos and you want to build a like spaceship, there's a bunch of different ways to assemble those Legos. You don't want to build it too tall in a too skinny environment because that'll make it really easy for everything to fall apart. And so if you like understanding like how things work, taking things apart, putting them back together, figuring out kind of how to I'm trying to think of the wording for this, but if you
Uh-oh, we might be having Wi-Fi issues.
Maybe she's just thinking along how to express it.
There we go. I think it reconnected maybe.
This is a great time to think of questions.
Yeah, true. For all the girls who are on the call, I thought that was really interesting when Instagram did add the Reels component, because isn't that the part that's kind of like TikTok? Like now they're competing with TikTok. So I just thought that was interesting if any of you do have TikTok, if you notice that they're trying to like replicate it. Hi, Jenny. I think you were frozen for a bit, but we might be able to hear you now. Hi, Jenny. It keeps like unfreezing for a little bit.
She's going to try disconnecting and then reconnecting back in.
Okay, sounds good. You're right, though. This is perfect time to think of questions. I do think it's so cool that she brought up the co-working space, because that is exactly where we meet on Sundays, is in a co-working space.
Yeah, girls, did you notice that? Did that space kind of look familiar?
I think it'd be really nice if we had what was it called? A community manager, I think. Like she said, like the front desk lady, like that'd be very nice if the Girls Code Lincoln space, there was someone to like greet us.
We actually do have a community manager. So there's a person at Fuse Co-working that we work with. And every time we need anything, so like girls, remember that one time the elevators didn't work? That's who I called. And so that person helps us like solve our problems if they ever come up. They help us figure out anything that we need. They are the ones that make sure the elevators like work during club. So usually that building is locked on the weekends, and they're the ones that unlock the building for us.
Gotcha.
Stuff like that. So they actually come to our end of the year party every time.
Oh, that's so cool. I actually had no idea. So they would normally be there more during the week.
Yeah, so they work during the week and generally aren't there during the weekends, but sometimes they drop in for like our events or to make sure club is going well. So they sit when we were facing club and where the teacher sits, all the way in the back of that, there's those higher desks. They sit back there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Theta, that is a really good question. I'm excited to hear both these answers, Avery and Theta's questions.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hopefully this works better.
Perfect.
So yeah, what I was saying before was that I think product managers think about business use cases and how to think about how to like differentiate your product, whereas engineers care about the code they're writing, the quality of the code, and how to build scalable systems. And so I think there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of engineers that become product managers and product managers that become engineers. I think learning how to code is a great way to see all of the different things that you're doing as you're engineering. If you are thinking about like what feature should I build or what should I build next, I would say that's more of a product thing. But if you're asking how do I make this code more efficient, or how do I make it easier for more users, for more people to use it, that's definitely more of an engineering thing. So I would think a lot about what interests you about what it is you're doing, and then to go from there.
I love that explanation. We have a couple questions in the chat from the girls. I'm not sure if you can see it since you disconnected, but the first one's Avery's curious who Instagram's biggest competitor is.
Ooh, yeah. That's a great question. I think there's a few different ways to think about it. If Instagram's mission is targeting users and people's time on their phone and like social platforms, I think TikTok is definitely a big one. I think it's when you think about younger generations and what people are starting to use, then you want the like virality component of making it really easy to share, and when friends send you a link, what are they sending you, and that kind of thing. So I think that's definitely that's one big one.
Definitely. And then Theta's curious, what is your favorite thing that you've helped think of and build?
Oh, that's a great question. I think one of my favorite projects that I worked on was to build a system. So I don't know if people have heard of Meetup, but they are all about creating communities. And so there are organizers who will come and say, I want to create an arts and craft meetup, or I want to create business networking meetups. And so they are these experts who bring people together based on interests and similarities. So we had a partnership between Meetup and WeWork, where we built a tool where Meetup organizers could actually book WeWork spaces. One of the biggest things that we heard from organizers was they were spending so much time trying to find different spaces. The arts and crafts meetups were going to Starbucks, and the organizer would go and basically wait for tables to then put their names on, because it was a first come first serve scenario, and you obviously can't book tables at Starbucks. These organizers didn't necessarily have big budgets that they could spend. And so in trying to think of ways to bring better events to WeWork, it was a great partnership to then be able to say, okay, how, if we allow organizers to host their meetups at WeWork, and we allow WeWork members to attend, then not only are we helping organizers get more people to their events, but we'll also fill the spaces with really cool and different types of event content.
That is a really smart partnership. And so you got to be partially on the team to create that partnership, or it was like your idea or your team's idea?
Yeah, so the partnership was set, and it was our idea to build a product that allowed organizers to book their meetups at a WeWork.
I love that. That's so cool. Akriti, I think, put a question in the chat.
I can read it out. How do you decide what gets built? So like, what process do you go through to figure out what's a good feature? And then if you have two features that sound really good, how do you decide between them?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. So there's a few different ways that we tell, because there's a million features that you can build, and only so many time and engineering resources. So you have to be really diligent about choosing what you're going to build next. So we take things like, we want to make sure that we're building the right product for our users. So a big piece of what we consider is user feedback. So this is anything from interviews that we conduct, where we will go out and ask people, how are you using the product? What's frustrating to you? And what do you wish that the product did? There's also always a channel of customer support. So people who are writing in, either complaining or suggesting new feature ideas. There's always a lot of really great insights there. And also we want to consider the business and where the business is going. And so for WeWork, a good example of that is WeWork always considered monthly memberships. So you would sign up, and every month you would get charged a fee, where you can then come in and out of the space however you wanted. WeWork as a business then wanted to explore what it would mean if you could book a conference room for an hour, or if you could come into a workspace for a day without signing up for a membership. So that's a good example of, if there's a business initiative that where they want to pursue something, then from the technology perspective, we want to make it possible for people to not get charged every month, and how do people find these workspaces, and things like that.
Sweet. Theta said that with a couple of friends, we've thought of a few ideas to build or create. Do you want to share some of those ideas, Theta? And do you mean like coding-wise, or more engineering, like inventor type ideas? We would love to hear from you. And if you want to just type it in the chat, if your microphone's not working, that's cool as well. She said kind of both. It kind of makes me think about, Jenny, when you were younger, what kind of jobs, like what did you want to be when you grew up? And were you always kind of the inventor, engineering type? Or did you really only get into coding in recent years?
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved understanding how things worked. And I was never particularly one to like play with dolls when I was young. My mom told me that I got a Barbie and immediately put it to bed, and then never picked it up again. And I was always like into Legos, into just like figuring out how, taking things apart, sometimes not being able to put them back together. And so I don't think I really knew that product management existed, but I loved learning about computers, and I loved you know, even when I got a new iPhone, being able to know like what does it do and what do buttons do, and just having that kind of curiosity. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Avery, that's such a good question as well, as how do you turn a figurative concept into a feature?
Yeah, that's a great question. Wow, these are all really good questions. So if I have an idea for a feature, then I'll think about like, okay, like what problem is it that I'm trying to solve? So a lot of times there are problems and there are solutions. So features are usually solutions to a problem. So if I say like I want to build something that let's think. I'm not coming up with ideas. Does anyone have an idea that we can kind of workshop together?
You could do the food shopping and Instagram one you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. So if I say like I want to let people pick their groceries on Instagram. I think the question would be like, start with why. So like, why do you want to build it? A few reasons could be because supermarkets are really struggling in the pandemic right now? Or is it because people who are shopping don't have an easy way to check out? Or is it because it'll help Instagram get new users? If we're trying to get new users for Instagram, there's a million ways in which we can do that. Or if it's about the supermarkets, then there's also a ton of different ways we can do it. Some of those solutions will overlap and some of them won't, but starting with the problem that you're trying to solve makes it really easy. It'll make your life a lot easier, because then sometimes when you're thinking like, why isn't this working? Or, you know, it's very easy to assume that you know what people want. But if you then start with the problem, then you can kind of validate or invalidate it with some data.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
I have a question. Have you learned any skills as a project manager that you wish you had known when you were a student, that you think would have helped you just be more successful or anything like that?
Oh, that's also a good question.
Or even just like generally in your career, I guess.
Yeah. I think I wish I knew how like product life cycles worked. Like I wish, so there's like business classes, there's product classes, there's design classes, and there's engineering classes. All of those are so separate. But working at WeWork and understanding how technology organizations work in general, I think is something that they don't really teach you in school. So even a lot of the questions that you're asking, I think those are things that I kind of wish I had learned a little more formally. So like, what does it take to know if you should build something? Why should you build something? What are some factors that you need to take into consideration? So I wish there was a class that kind of combined all of these functions to then kind of showcase how like technology teams work.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
So our girls have spent a lot of time coding, and sometimes I think we're starting to learn that coding takes longer than we think it will. So we hit bugs, we hit a lot of issues, and part of your job is figuring out like what you're building. But if you don't know how long something is going to take, how do you do that? How do you estimate for time?
Yeah, I think so. As a product manager, I've learned to assume that we are not going to like the delivery time is always questionable. So I think if you are building a feature and you say, I want to see all users that are in New York, then an engineer might come back and say, well, is Queens New York? Is Brooklyn New York? Is Staten Island New York, right? Like, what do we define as New York? And then that's where a product manager will say, okay, like, let's consider all of New York. And engineers can say, okay, well, doing that will take, doing all of New York will take a day, and doing only Manhattan will take 2 days. And so then you can kind of start to learn trade-offs, because like you said, there are so many different, we call them like edge cases, and things that come up that will lengthen the amount of time that you want to ship something. And the idea isn't that you, like, shipping a perfect product doesn't really exist. And you know, and the idea is that if you ship it with no bugs and everything is perfect, then you've shipped it too late. Because the value of getting your feature out the door earlier and learning from your users and learning how people are using your product is actually worth, there's some trade-offs and benefits to launching it sooner, in order to, get it in the hands of users as quickly as possible. Obviously you want to do that when it's working and when it feels good and the design looks good. So it's definitely a balance there.
Avery, I love your idea for a girls code game jam so that we could all share ideas. That's so cute, especially since a lot of you sound like you have app and video game ideas. That is very cute, very fun.
Jenny, you mentioned the word ship. I don't know if a lot of our girls have heard what that means.
Yeah. That's a great call out. So when we talk about, we talk about a few phases in product development. So we talk about the discovery, which is like, how do you know that an idea is a good idea? Then we have like the define, which is, okay, we have an idea. So if we are talking about Instagram Reels, then that's like, do we allow 10-second videos or a minute video, or what happens when it's over a certain amount of time? And that's coming up with all of the like requirements that you need in order for designers and engineers to kind of come up with a game plan of what we're going to build. Then we develop features. So that's mainly when engineers take the idea and they run and they will actually go and code it. And then we have the release. So when we release a feature, sometimes we say we ship it, which means that we are then taking the feature that we built and we are releasing or deploying it so that people can start using it.
So girls, it's kind of like when we use Glitch and we click save and then we like open up our website, you know, it like reloads, that's shipping. But when we use code professionally, it's not as easy. There's a lot of steps as a part of that to ship that code. Glitch makes it a little bit easier for us. Yeah, thanks for explaining that, Jenny.
Yeah.
I think for all of our girls, we definitely emphasize that school is super important, but it's also really great to have a balance and to do things like Girls Code Lincoln in your free time and also hang out with friends. And so you mentioned that you like hiking and playing sports, and what's kind of your advice for the girls to make sure you don't focus on just school or just work? How do you keep a balance in your own life?
Yeah, I think finding, for me, it's been, I think for everyone it's different. So I think it's learning for yourself how to make sure that you kind of keep yourself in check. I know for me that having friends kind of keep me accountable is really important. So me and one of my friends, we decided we were going to join a soccer league, and then we found a ton of other people that wanted to play. So that was a really great way to start. Another was that my friend had just bought watercolors, and she was learning to watercolor. I wanted to learn how to do calligraphy and handwriting. So we kind of had this like drink and draw where we kind of like set, it wasn't like a cadence, but it was once we met, then we would decide the next time we were meeting. So it was a good way for us to do that. But I learned that I love doing things with other people, and I found that if I don't, then I'll start kind of just being a little like stressed. And I think it's really important to balance. I think it's really important to have things outside of work that you're passionate about. Because for me, it's just made me more of a balanced person in general.
I love that, and I like that you keep yourself accountable with your friends. That's fun. Taekwondo, that is really cool, Theta. Do any of your other
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, any of the other girls play sports here?
So I have another question for you. One of the things that you're really about is empowering other women. So can you tell us a little bit more about how you do that, and what advice you would have for our girls who are like middle school aged to empower other girls in the classroom and in their lives as well?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's talking at events like this. I think I've been a mentor to high school students and people who are trying to find kind of what it is that they want to do, and being able to kind of meet with different people, different girls and women who want to get into technology fields. I think, what was the second part of your question?
What would you recommend for younger girls to empower other girls in the classroom or in their daily lives?
Yeah, I think like finding different ways to support one another. I think being in different groups like this is really important. Also, it's not always assumed that wherever you go, you'll feel comfortable sharing all of your ideas and making and like wanting to kind of bounce off of each other. And so I would say, like, if you find that, definitely value it, because that is like something that is like to be celebrated. And I think it's being able to, if you see someone else that you think is like shyer or is needs a little help, kind of like pay it forward. I think it's like it's kind of people who are going to reach out to you, and you who's going to reach out to someone else. It kind of is an ongoing chain that kind of pays it forward.
Absolutely. I think we're sharing favorite school subjects now. I was always a big fan of math, definitely growing up, but I think history is very fun. I kind of miss history now that I'm mostly coding in school. But
math and writing. I feel like it's usually math and sciences, or like English and writing, so it's interesting that you like both.
Yeah, that's a great combo. How about you, Prisha? What's your favorite subject? Theta also likes history.
I've never been very good at history as much as I wanted to be.
FCS. What does FCS stand for? I'm not sure I'm familiar with that one.
Family consumer science.
Oh, a kind of science. What was the first word though with the F?
Family consumer science.
Very cool. Yeah, I've never.
Wow, what is that? I've never heard of that.
That might be like home ec or something.
Yeah, it's like home ec, but they renamed it Family Consumer Sciences.
Oh, interesting.
How nifty.
That's cool. How about you, Aspen? Or Avery? I'd love to hear from all of you.
For me, it really depends on the teacher. I like a lot of subjects. Like I really like doing art outside of school, but I really don't like art class because I always like have an idea that's way too ambitious for the time, or like it doesn't fit in with the priorities, and I procrastinate a lot. So it's kind of like that. Even though I really like art, a lot of times I won't like it in school because of some of those things.
That makes sense.
I think something that a lot of girls don't think about is how you can merge technology and art or technology and writing. And that's kind of something that we're trying to focus on for this series, where we really wanted to show girls other areas. Um, so like Avery, you're really interested in art, like graphic design is a really great way to mix those, video game design, animation. If you're really into like writing, you might also be really into like communicating with other people. And so like, I bet you do a lot of that, Jenny, right now, where you talk to a lot of different kinds of people. And so there's a lot of great ways to merge technology with those things too.
Yeah, definitely. I think people think about technology and they only think about the engineering aspect of it. But there is definitely more different jobs that include. So I write actually a lot for my job. We create what's called a spec, and that is how product managers, designers, and engineers, and how everybody on the team knows and knows what we're building. And if you asked anyone on the team what we were building and how, that everybody would hopefully have the same answer, which is important in terms of communicating what our plan is and why we're choosing certain things, so that if we wanted to go back to a feature a year ago and say, why did we make that decision, we'd be able to find it. Oh yeah, Theta, I would love to hear what stories you write.
Fiction, nice.
Girls, do you have more questions for Jenny?
It doesn't sound like it. So
Wait,
no more. We usually at the end of all of our speaking events like to just quickly introduce who's going to be speaking next week. So we did talk a little bit about kind of the intersection between technology and art. And so next week we have another speaker who's going to be combining something outside of technology. So she's an animator. Her name is Trisha. And she works for DreamWorks. I think she currently works for Sony, but she has experience at DreamWorks. So if you're interested in animation and art, you should definitely tune in next Thursday. We're going to have Trisha speaking with us. Theta says, you like to reimagine the world. Do you do that sometimes when you're trying to decide a product? Ooh.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think creating a feature and deciding what you want to build, I mean, small or large, you want to assume it's like having a peep into what you want people to be doing, and where you want the technology to go.
Yeah, you can go ahead, Avery. Ooh, what online resources do you use to help you do your job?
Yeah, that's a great question. I am a part of a few different groups. I've loved being a part of that. So there is a Women in Product group. So it's for women who are product managers. or aspiring to be product managers. It is a nonprofit and a incredibly supportive community. And so that is where I go, because so many people are sharing what books they've read, what podcasts they're listening to. I've posted on there a few times with questions and help that I've needed, and I've always gotten such an overwhelming and positive response from that. And we'll learn from my peers, and we'll do kind of my own research on what I should be reading, and yeah.
That's great. Oh, she said thank you. I like that you can work with peers in that way, and learning, I think, from each other is one of the most powerful ways that you can learn.
Yeah, definitely.
We usually like to end our events also with just parting advice that you have for the girls. So they're all off doing different things, pandemic learning and that sort of thing. But if you have any kind of final advice, either in terms of empowering women or related to school, we would just love to hear something from you.
Ooh, yeah, this is I think I would say, like, don't be afraid to ask for help. I think sometimes it's so easy to assume that you don't know it because, like, and it's so easy to get caught up in like imposter syndrome of like, I can't do it because I'm not good enough, or like other people know this and I don't. And I think even with the smallest things, it's being able to support yourself around people who you can trust and ask those questions to, and also being able to ask someone for help when you're stuck on something, are things that are not easy, but really important.
I love that. It is so important to ask questions. That's a great piece of parting advice. Oh, Theta says thank you, and that makes so much sense.
Yeah, of course. This was so fun.
Really appreciate your time speaking with us. This has been wonderful. We know it was a bit of a smaller group today, but we just loved hearing your experience with product management, and I think it gave the girls a good perspective on something outside of pure development work. So thank you so much for speaking with us. To all the girls in the chat, thank you for joining us this week, and we really hope to see you all next week. It'll be next Thursday. And yeah, Akriti, if you have any final words, you're definitely welcome to finish this off.
I was just going to say, Jenny talked about being in groups that are really collaborative. I think it's worth mentioning that I posted about this in a group full of women that are in tech, and Jenny volunteered. And so it's kind of amazing, all of those communities that are out there and how willing people are to help if you just ask. And I think that's something that we're all really afraid to ask, but people are generally willing to help. So thanks for volunteering, Jenny. Thanks for speaking up and offering to do this for us.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. All right, I think that's it. So enjoy the rest of your Thursday nights, and we will see some of you next week. Oh, we got one more question. Did I find a rock?
I think that's for other.
Yeah, I found a rock there. I think it's called Alliance Rocks. It's a movement. So there's a lot of those rocks being spread across the state of Nebraska now too, actually. It's kind of wild.
Jenny, we live in Nebraska, and there's on the other side of the state, there's a monument known as Carhenge, and it's kind of like Stonehenge, but it's made out of cars. And then they're also
nice.
Silver. Well, Ryan Wolf had really wanted to go check out Carhenge, and he finally did.
Oh, that's
awesome.
So
Yeah. Yes. I love it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much, and enjoy the rest of your Thursday nights. Thanks again, Jenny. See ya.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.